Hey guys, in this podcast we talk about different health topics. As we are not medical experts, we'd ask for you to check with your physician first before using any information provided in this podcast. Furthermore, we talk about third-party views in this podcast. Please know that we have no intention of misrepresenting these views, and we apologize in advance if we do so. Thanks.
Hey guys, so this is sort of a continuation of our podcast on EQ, but today we're going to give you examples of EQ and then we're going to analyze what happened.
Okay.
So just like a refresher on what I was talking about, is empathy is key to good social skills because we create this persona in our head and we want other people to be able to see us in a certain light.
Definitely.
So people who are able to see us that way, maybe because they share similar experiences, are people that we're going to befriend because when people have shared experiences, it releases positive endorphins when we both talk about it. So that's why commonalities, shared experience, and empathy are so important to this.
Yeah, just briefly recap, we talked about mirror neurons and how whenever like you smile, the other person in their brain is actually imitating that smile as well, and so they become happy from it. And same thing happens if you're nervous, they become nervous and they just like that nervous feeling so they don't tend to associate with you.
Yeah, so that's just sort of a brief
recap
on what we talked about last time. So today we're actually going to do some acting, and a disclaimer is that we are terrible at acting, and so maybe we should do a podcast on acting skills eventually.
Yeah.
So we can,
Anyways, yeah, so what we want to stress with this one is we're trying to give you sample dialogue so that you're able to learn from just examples alone.
Yeah, and then we're going to explain afterward like why. So this, and the hope is not so much that you pick up on the individual thing that we're talking about, but maybe that you learn the process to analyze and understand how your behavior is affecting someone else's behavior.
Gotcha.
Okay, so this situation, Nick is going to be a very attractive female who I just ran into at the bar, and
Alright.
I have the intentions of getting lucky or whatever.
So
That's my goal.
the first time he's not going to be very emotionally intelligent. Just kind of like hasn't really learned that much, I guess, socially. Okay, so all right. So
Yeah, this could be terrible because we did not prepare this whatsoever, but
you're selling that short, Paul. All right. So, anyways, okay. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, my name's Paul.
Oh, nice to meet
I'm
you.
a entrepreneur.
Oh, what's that?
Oh well, I make my own companies. I have like millions of dollars.
Wow.
Yeah, and
okay.
basically, I've made millions of dollars. I have all these employees. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, I guess so. So like, what do you actually do? Or
Oh well, now I don't even do anything. Like all my employees do the work for me and stuff.
wow, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
And you just make like a lot of money.
I make so much money. Like my wife, not my wife.
Failure.
Okay, failure. Okay. So first off, I just want to point out that like most girls would probably not respond all the way Nick does. Like,
I was being extra nice. Yeah.
He was being extra nice, so maybe like they're willing to listen to me because like I'm so good looking. Let's just say,
Yeah.
and so they're willing to listen to my like awful social skills. So let's just analyze the situation and talk a little bit about it because this is sort of a hyperbole, meaning like an exaggeration
Right.
of what people try to do. Like no one says like I'm a millionaire, I make lots of money. Like that's just so up front and not subtle at all. That but we're saying that people do this.
Yeah.
But they do it a little differently and probably not so much. This is just an exaggeration of it.
Right.
So why is it that what I was doing obviously was bragging, but why is it that bragging is not good? Because isn't it important for him, but her in the situation, to understand like to know like all these cool things about me?
Right. Yeah.
Isn't like don't you think that would be good that she would know this right off the bat? She can like eliminate all these other guys and right away know like, oh, this guy could potentially
He's a
be good 'cause he's a
millionaire. He has thousands of employees working for him.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's done something right. Yeah.
But I'm gonna say that if this was a real situation, the girl probably would have like not spoken to me. Like she probably would have like blown me off right away.
Yeah.
Especially in like a nightclub or something where that's socially acceptable.
Right.
Maybe if I go up during the day, they'd maybe talk to me friendly and then try to get out of the conversation. But right off the bat, I'm displaying like poor social skills.
Right.
So why is it that even though I'm telling her important information, it's bad? Well, you have to kind of look at these situations from a context. And the best way to understand them is looking at it from the other person's perspective, okay? So Nick here was a very attractive female, and she is very pretty, okay? So when you think of things through her shoes, you have to realize that because she's pretty and that she gets a lot of her value from her looks, that it's likely that a lot of guys like her right away just because she's so good looking.
Right.
So what do most guys do when they see someone they like? They either like shy away, don't say anything, which is common. But some guys go up and try to talk.
Yeah.
And so how do they get her? She's so pretty. How do they convince her that they are on equal ground and that they would be good for each other? Well, they try to do this by means of pushing themselves up. And that's what bragging does, is it pushes yourself up. But think of this, like this is another tool I use. So Brad Pitt walks into the room.
Okay.
Does he ever have to say, I am a millionaire, I'm doing all, like, I have all of this stuff, you know? Or does this girl just instantly like him?
Insta-like?
She probably instantly likes him, and he doesn't say any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying here is that the quality of bragging shows insecurity and shows that you have to verbally say things in order to make yourself suitable. And
Yeah.
Firstly, there's a lot of guys doing this. So for one, the girl, because she's probably approached a lot by guys, finds it incredibly boring,
Yeah.
and instantly knocks it off. Two, by bragging, you're suggesting that you are lower, like, totem pole value, because
Right.
if
Otherwise,
Brad
you wouldn't
Pitt
need to
walked in-
brag.
If Brad Pitt walked in, he doesn't have to say anything.
Yeah, so like you're basically saying either my image is not good enough or something about me is not good enough, but to compensate,
To compensate,
I
have
must,
to
I
add.
need to brag. But if you never bragged in the first place, they would never think that you did need to compensate in the first
Yeah.
place. Now, I mean, looks alone, they can tell right away, I guess. But, yeah. So do you want to run through that example scenario again?
Yeah, so I will attempt to do this better, but because I'm not, like, a master at this or anything.
Yeah. Well,
So
I am.
I will
So
come
don't
up
worry.
to you. I'll come up to you. I'll have some corny line like, "Oh, why is everyone here? Where's the Bible study at? I don't see a Bible study anywhere."
This is a bar.
I know, I was kidding. Okay, so this is bad. This is bad EQ. Okay, so I'll just go with like the typical maybe approach or something like, okay, like, hey, I'm Paul.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Sarah.
Oh, you're Sarah. Cool. I actually had a girlfriend. Not, I shouldn't say girlfriend. My
Failure.
sister. My sister's name is Sarah. You know, it's been. I forget what it is, but there's something like really interesting about the name Sarah.
Oh,
that you-
well, you know, my history teacher told me like its roots once, but I kind of forgot.
Yeah, like Sarah means like awesome or something. Does that mean you're awesome? Like.
Well, I guess so. I don't know. But so what's your name?
I'm Paul.
Oh, nice to meet you. So
We already shook hands, but.
yeah,
Jeez.
yeah.
No, but okay, so. All right, obviously this isn't like a picture perfect scene.
I think we need to do a little bit longer duration one.
Okay,
maybe.
but,
yeah.
but what I was just showing is that like I ultimately wanted to show the purpose that like bragging's not good, but you want to, because bragging is sort of leeching on to other person's, like, you need their validation. You
Yeah.
need them to say like yes, like okay, and you need someone to like you because of your accomplishments.
Yeah.
But like when you just go in and you just have like a friendly conversation, like where you offer up jokes and positive emotions, that person links you to those positive emotions, and you come at equal value because
Right.
two equal value people don't feel the need to brag to each other.
Yeah,
They don't
and-
need to compensate.
Exactly. And notice how like Paul like talked about something that was important to Sarah in that case, like her name. I mean, that's pretty important to anybody. But the fact is, like, he didn't brag at all. In fact, he was more interested in her, trying to like keep a conversation alive by talking about something that she would be interested in.
Yeah, and like I think the big thing is like offering value, not like, you know, expecting it back. You know, like
Yeah.
just being fun, being positive, and you know, when you're bragging, like I said, you're kind of expecting them to, either like you're leaving it up to them to like you, and that's something that someone of like lower social status is going to do, and someone like Brad Pitt won't do that.
Right.
So why don't we jump into like another scenario?
Okay.
I'm sure like everyone is probably tuned out already.
Either
Just
this
listening to
video
this,
is going to be severely disliked or liked. It could be liked for the wrong reasons. But,
so okay, so why don't we do something like job interview?
Sure.
So something about job interview, and this is kind of to demonstrate like what I was talking about context wise. Like when you're going to a bar and meeting a girl, it's not good to brag. But in a interview, your purpose is to brag, and it's
Yeah.
socially acceptable to brag.
But there's still a fine line.
There's
Like, you
still a
don't want
fine
to be
line of-
overtly bragging about something that's not even relevant to what they're asking
Yeah.
to you.
So
asking
some
about.
bragging is acceptable, but a lot of it isn't. So, I guess maybe we could demonstrate something like.
Sure.
Do you have anything in mind?
Yeah. Well, why don't I be the interviewer, and then I'm gonna ask you. I'm a company, and I'm the head of a company, and let's say I want to hire you because you're good at finding small startup companies and seeing which ones are going to succeed.
Yeah. So okay. So what point do we want to bring across in this?
The point I guess we're going to be focusing on is how Paul carries himself to still bring up, like, the first time
Yeah,
you
okay,
run,
so-
you'll be overtly bragging, not the way you're
Yeah.
not supposed to. But then the second time, we'll run through it as if like you're able to conduct the interview
Okay,
properly. So, anyways,
So
all right.
ask me questions or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So I'll be like, hi, I'm Mr. Stevenson.
Hi, I'm Paul.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming down, talking with us today. So we've heard you've had some experience in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So basically, I had a company that I found with a small business, and I just knew right off the bat that this company was gonna be big. I just felt it, so I just invested all my money, and you know now I'm really successful from it. Like,
You invested all your money. That seems like a pretty risky endeavor.
well, I felt like it was a good move on my part.
Oh, okay. So how many companies have you invested in total?
You know, probably like a couple thousand.
1,000.
Yeah. Well, like I like will spend a little bit here and there and stuff, but pretty much every company I've invested in has really done well.
Wow. Well, it seems like no one has a stellar
Well,
record
we
as
actually
much as that.
we had a company that went from $1 a day to $3,000 a day.
Uh, wow. That's just. I guess that's unheard of. So, what is your thinking process when you try to select a company?
Um, yeah, I tend to just leave it up to my intuition. My intuition just I just have a
But
knack
could you
for
explain
picking
that
out.
a little bit more? Just
No, well, I just listen to their pitch, and then if it sounds like plausible, then I'm just like, I like assessing like the way people are who run the company too.
okay. Okay. Well, Mr. DeMott, thank you for your time. Anyways, yeah. All right. So that's
So I mean, like the thing to remember is like because of the context, the fact that this is a job interview, it's not too outrageous to be bragging as much as I am.
right.
And so it's not that bad, but maybe like you'd want to be a little more subtle and. Well, the most important thing during a job interview is that you want to understand what the company is looking for and then fit that mold as closely as you possibly can.
Yeah. And notice that like Paul never he wanted to impress me, but he wasn't because he never actually answered my questions. I kept asking like, so what do you actually do to like figure out which companies to invest in? And Paul was like, it sounds so cool. If I was just like, yeah, it's just my intuition. Yeah, like I just got this, like
Yeah.
and like and there's a lot of times where Paul just like didn't have to say this, but he's like, yeah, like our company, like $1,000 or $1 to 3,000 like overnight or whatever, like that was completely unnecessary. There's another time where Paul just flat interrupted me, like I wasn't even able to finish the sentence, just to interrupt me with what
Right.
more bragging
Yeah.
material.
And so like the thing you have to remember about bragging is that it's ultimately compensation. Now in a
Right.
job interview, you're supposed to brag. It's the point. You're supposed to like show your best qualities, but people don't like people who they perceive are trying to gain value by giving information about themselves. It's always better to have someone else say something good about you than for the person to say it specifically directly themselves to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So why don't we maybe run through the same scenario again? And this time, let's see how Paul can handle himself if he was emotionally intelligent. He wants to brag or at least like
Convey good
convey the
points,
resume, but at the same time be emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Okay. So, hi, I'm Mr. Stevenson. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Paul. I really appreciate this interview that you're giving me.
Well,
today.
thanks for coming down
Yeah.
here. We appreciate your time as well. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience?
Okay, so basically, I've been working in the field for a long time. It's something I'm very passionate about. There's been a few companies that have really caught my eye in terms of small businesses, and like when I go there, when I started out when I was evaluating this stuff, I didn't know what to do, but over time, just from doing this, I sort of have a process that I look for in companies, and then I have enough experience to say that like this company could excel. And so that's how I invest in these small companies. I have this criteria that I go through, and for the most part, it's been effective.
Could you, I mean, if you're not allowed to say it, don't say it, but can you maybe explain a little bit more in depth what that criteria is?
So one of the things that I think is most important is seeing the person that's behind the idea, because like an idea itself, it can be good, but it really depends on who's pushing the idea.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my evaluations, my first evaluations come from observing the person who's running it, seeing are they disciplined, do they have the focus and attention to do this, and I try to really connect to them and really understand them, and I give them a lot of time to to try to prove themselves to me, and if they do meet that criteria, then I start looking at other criteria.
That sounds great. I was actually looking at your resume, and it looks like you had a company go from $1 to 3,000 overnight.
Yeah. Well, honestly, some of it was luck, but after evaluating this company, I really felt that the owner, he was very motivated. When I looked at their product and evaluated the demand for it and stuff, I thought to myself that this really had potential. So, they went through our evaluation system, and sometimes you get lucky, and I feel like that's what happened in that situation.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, Mr.
Yeah.
Mott. We appreciate
Thank
it. Anyways, okay, so yeah, so as you can tell, that was much better. Paul still was able to brag about every single point that he did in the last video, but the other person actually brought it up, and it was like indirectly communicated, I want to say.
So the important thing in the job interview is that you're trying to communicate certain qualities about yourself, but you want to do it as indirectly as possible. Same with the bar situation. You want to communicate this stuff that you're an entrepreneur and that you make money, but you want to communicate indirectly, because when you communicate indirectly, one, they don't see you as trying to increase your social value by compensating and saying stuff directly, and two, they just start seeing it as a part of you and not some tactic that you're using to get them to like you.
Right.
And so you can use this as a tactic. You can use indirect communication as a tactic, and that's what I was doing in the job interview. Is like, I want to convey these things to him, but I also want to convey like emotional intelligence to him. I want to convey a reasonable thinker. I want to convey all these things, but I'm not outright saying it. I'm almost explaining it through a story. And through storytelling, we can convey a lot of characteristics to ourselves about ourselves without directly saying it. So I could tell you a story about like how, one of my previous girlfriends was a Playboy model and stuff.
What are you doing here, man?
And you could be like, wow, like, he's not bragging about it. He's just telling a story about it. So I think in job interviews and in dating, it's important to convey these characteristics in indirect ways. And I think a story is a good means to do it. So I was sort of telling the story about how I evaluate it. But I was really trying to convey a lot of different things through that. But I was doing it much more appropriately.
Yeah, right.
Than the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we can run through maybe one final scenario. And maybe this one is in the work environment. You're already at the job. But it has different dynamics here because you're going with your peer. So let's say Paul is planning on ordering some like research parts for our design, and we're like a biomedical engineering firm or something. And I've told Paul that the parts he's going to order the other company from, like, those parts are bad. The company has bad reputation. Don't order them. Paul ends up ordering them. We end up trying to build a device, and it ultimately fails because the parts were malfunctioning.
So why don't you be the boss and you use a strategy of just like anger, and things like that, and then we'll show like why that this is not a strong social strategy, and why anger, although it can be powerful in manipulation and coercion of other people, it is not the most effective strategy in a lot of situations.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily need to be the boss. Me, I'm just the peer. It doesn't really matter at this point.
Okay. Yeah. But I messed up.
Yeah.
Now you come to me.
I'm angry at Paul for not heeding my advice and still ordering, and now I have this $1 million design fail. So yeah,
I really screwed up.
Yeah. Okay. So Paul, thanks for coming to my office. Look, I'm just seriously, I don't even know how to say this, but I'm just aggravated, Paul. I told you not to get that part from that company, and look, we have $1 million down the drain. How am I going to explain that to my superiors? Give me three reasons. Give me at least one reason, one way to explain to them how I'm going to explain to them this phenomenon. Okay.
I can't.
I don't want to hear I can't, Paul.
Really...
I can't doesn't cut it. That's not an excuse. Okay, I'm serious about this. Something's going to happen. We just lost $1 million. Do you have $1 million in your bank account that you want to put towards this company?
No.
How do you think that's going to affect our stock prices? I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, do you ever think when you go to sleep at night, like, oh, I have this job and my boss is cool, but he doesn't know everything, so I'll just do my own little thing and order from the company, even if I told him not to, even my boss told me not to. I mean, come on. How are we going to work together if you're not even listening to me?
That's all I can say. I'm sorry. That's it.
Whatever. All right. I know what. I got to take an Advil or something. I'll see you later. Okay.
That was great. Yeah. Well, you might be a little better acting than this.
Yeah, Hollywood. You better be looking for something. Yeah. So anyways, so as you can see, like, I didn't even give Paul a chance to talk, and half the stuff I said was complete garbage.
So first off, one thing that you should say is, like, in a sense, this is effective, and this is why people do it, because I'm probably never gonna mess up again.
Right.
I'm probably never gonna make that same mistake again. But what I was, it was kind of humiliating to have someone yell at me and not let me talk, and just push on. And so, I may leave that meeting being angry with you. I realize I messed up and I apologize, but like, I don't like being around you anymore. I don't really want to do my best work for you. I feel like a failure, and I feel like I've been labeled as a failure, and that I'll continue to be like that.
And same here. I mean, I'm angered. My heart rate is up. My sympathetic nervous system is like haywire right now.
Yeah.
That's only going to hurt my arteries in the future. And the main thing is it's emotionally hurting me as well. Whenever I see Paul now, I just associate anger with him.
Yeah. And another thing that might happen, and you could argue that this could be a positive thing, but because he gets so angry at me, I may go out of my way to try to repair the thing.
Yeah.
Now, that's the proactive move. Does this happen in most situations? No. And that's why I think context is important. Like, if you know this person is motivated and will do better work if you yell at them, then it might be right to yell at them in the situation, because they'll come back and they'll want to impress you, and then when they come back and impress you, you reward them and give them positive feedback for that.
Yeah.
But most people do not like handle being yelled at and stuff well, and now you've just taken an employee who messed up and you just made him probably a worse employee.
Right. Now, on the opposite side, we're going to reenact this, but the strategy I'm going to use again is Stephen Covey's Seek First to Understand methodology, where I'm going to transform an argument rather into a discussion. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Argument, instead of arguments, you have discussions.
So what we're doing, though, here is, like, we're showing you two strategies to a social encounter, and then you can use one or the other, and they both have some benefits and positives, but we're going to say that the second strategy outweighs because of the advantages that come from it.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit more about this when we're done, but I think in general, a social strategy that, avoids getting angry, and is sympathetic is far superior in terms of what you can get from it than a strategy where you get angry.
Right.
So,
okay. Paul, thanks for coming in. you've probably heard about the situation. We've lost $1 million. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought told you not to order those parts.
Like honestly, like I really messed up on this. You told me not to order the parts, but my wife encouraged me to buy the parts, and
Because they were cheaper, I think that was
they
the
were
reason
cheaper,
why.
yeah, and basically, you know, I really screwed up, and I want to let you know though that like this will never happen again, and that from now on I'm gonna be the best I can be in this situation.
I mean, that's good to hear. I mean, obviously we've lost a lot of money here. I'm glad that you're motivated to say that you're not going to do this
Yeah.
again. Is there a way we could figure out a methodology almost to ensure that you wouldn't do something like this again? Is there something that we can work out?
I think if we sit down that we can put some blocks in place to prevent this from ever happening again.
Yeah, blocks of time. I like that. So maybe before any purchasing decisions, we'll schedule a block off just to meet, review what we're purchasing, and from there we can avoid errors like this in the future. The other thing that kind of concerned me was that despite my advice, you went against it. I'm your boss, Paul. Can you kind of explain to me why that was, or?
It was really just a lack of judgment on my part. I thought that this was going to work out and that we were going to make more money, and I thought it was a calculated risk, but it wasn't. And I realized like from your perspective that it must feel like I went behind your back to do this.
It kind of does, yeah.
And but I learned from it, and it won't happen again. But all I can say really is that I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Paul, for talking to me about this. I appreciate your time. Let's work together to make sure this doesn't happen again. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. All right. So, anyways, okay. So you can kind of see in that situation, the boss really if you look at the amount of percentage of time being talked per person, Paul had about 50%, maybe 60%. And the thing is that I was allowing Paul to kind of to save himself a little bit, but moreover, towards the end, we were able to work out a solution
Yeah.
to prevent this from ever happening again. And so I want to point out that this, on the other, now instead of having like to fire you and like find a new employee that would be able to do this, might fail the same way, I actually can now work with Paul, and now he's even a better employee because I know he's not going to do the same thing.
Yeah, he knows I'm not going to do the same thing, and he knows that like I respect him, and think like when you're forgiven, you often become a better employee, or like you often become better because you know that that person didn't have to forgive you, and they're giving you a second chance. So often we try to live up to those second opportunities better than we did the first time. So, but if you compare the two situations, there's obviously some perks and some failures of each situation. Like arguably on the second one, you could say, well, he didn't really punish me enough, and so maybe I'll do it again, thinking that when he comes to me, that it won't be that big of a deal. But this is also where context matters. So say it's my second time failing, and the first time you implement that strategy of coming to me, next time you come in and you say like, look, I wanted to understand why you made this decision. I really put trust in you, but you really screwed up, and you cannot work for this company anymore.
Yeah. So the common thing we're seeing is you maybe give someone a chance and you have a discussion with them, but if they do the mistake over and over again, at some point you just simply let them go.
Yeah, like punishment and ultimately using anger should only be a tactic applied to a situation where the person is consciously like not respecting your authority.
Yeah.
Consciously doing things inappropriately. And that's where it's really important to be powerful and strong against someone. But we can imagine that the person that I played, would maybe just made a mistake. So if he just made a mistake, that first situation when he's yelled at and stuff, and he's humiliated, now like all this bad negative stuff in addition to him messing up comes from it.
Right.
You couldn't have stopped this problem. It would have happened anyway. So are you going to take the one that screws up everything, or are you going to take the one where you potentially make a good employee out of it who won't mess up again?
Yeah.
Someone who really respects you and wants to please you even more.
Now, one counter argument to this is like situations where you simply can't let the person go. So let's say like you give them a second chance, you have a good discussion with them, but then they constantly keep failing. In a normal company, you would let the person go, but in like family situations, that's not possible. I mean, you can't like just divorce your wife. I mean, you can, but
well, you can't. Let's say children, you can't like just
yeah,
kick your child.
You can't just kick your child out or something like that. So I think there's a couple strategies I want to talk about. Maybe this can be a bragging and argument type of podcast, but
yeah,
a couple strategies I want to talk about that you can still do in a situation where you need to still work with that same person. Okay, so the first one is what I call like just the cut time or the timeout type of thing, where when my family, if I get in a heated discussion with like my dad, for example, I'll just say, hey, Dad, right now I know things are kind of hot right now. I just need to like go out for a half hour and think about what you've said, and then let's continue this. I know this is important. I want to keep talking about it, but I just need a half hour to think about what's going on.
Yeah. And so compare the two emotional intelligence strategies to each other. One is they continue the heated debate, which often is just a bunch of, cycling through the same argument, yelling at the other person until the other person just gives up, which rarely happens.
Yeah.
So you waste more time and you get more angry.
Right.
That's one option. Option two, you stay time away. Maybe you come back and you're still just as angry. Well, you just got 30 minutes more time to do whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
But most likely, one of the two people is going to come back less angry and more reasonable. Because when you're in an argument, the other parts, like parts of your brain, often associated with like the animalistic parts of our nature, are active. But when you take that break, you start breathing properly. Suddenly, the parts of your brain, like the logical parts, start coming back into play, and you can look at the problem much more clearly and maybe understand the other person's perspective better.
Yeah, there's some biological things I just want to talk about really quick. So remember we talked about like a sympathetic and parasympathetic response. Sympathetic's like fight or flight, like something's gonna eat me, and then parasympathetic is like potato chips or like watching TV. So the thing is that in an argument, your sympathetic is going full out, like your adrenaline is pumping, and you're using everything you can to like either attack or run away. When you take that half-hour break, you allow your parasympathetic to be activated, and you're just relaxing, and then and because you're calm, your primal instincts suddenly kind of evaporate almost. Mm-hmm. It's actually easier for you to use your primal instincts because they require less brain power. It's basically less amount of intelligence. It's just like, if you hurt me, I hurt you. If you help me, I help you. That's kind of like what your primal instincts say. But a more advanced thought is, I can see your intention that you want to help me, but instead it was conveyed in a way that hurt me.
Yeah. And also, like, look at the psychological thing that's going around in the argument. So, like, the person often resorts to, like, ad hominem attacks, like personal attacks against the person. They'll say stuff like, "You're a stupid idiot." Like, and clearly that's a very redundant, irrational thing to say. But what they're trying to do here is, like, these words, like stupid and idiot and, like, curse words and stuff, carry with them an emotional attachment.
Yeah.
And they are trying to they're trying to win a battle basically by activating all these terrible emotions in the other person,
right,
by saying these words. But as you can see, like, you can just keep saying stuff, keep tearing someone down. It's not gonna, when you're making someone experience bad emotions, it's not gonna want to make them stop arguing a lot of times. It's just gonna make them they're just gonna hate you more and want to argue more and more.
And a common theme that you kind of see is when someone's like spitting all these like, "You're an idiot, you're never gonna get anywhere, look where I got, you're never gonna get there, you gotta think like me." A common theme that I do, this is immature of me, but a theme I do is I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm not really good at all. You obviously know exactly what to do."
Sarcasm.
So it's like it's a dry sarcasm, and I'm actually just saying, "No, you're completely wrong, and I know you're wrong." That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I mean, you see this all the time, like on Friends, like when their arguments and stuff. Like Jennifer Aniston is like brilliantly good at doing this, of conveying this. Like the whole point is that at this point, the argument hasn't turned from like about the issue that you were originally talking about. It's more of just, I'm more correct or better than you, and therefore you should listen to me. That's what basic arguments that's the foundation of what an argument goes down to. Like, either I'm better than you, and thus you should listen to me, or else. So I think if you've ever reached that point, that's a clear sign of just taking a break. Nothing can work wonders as just taking a break, and it doesn't take a lot of IQ to take a break, So it's just identifying when to take a break. A lot of people get caught up and they want to keep going, like, "I don't need a 5-minute break." Odds are, if you're saying you don't need a 5-minute break, you do need a 5-minute break.
Yeah. Well, do we want to end on that? Or?
Yeah. I think that was the main points I wanted to make. Honestly, in my opinion, you should not ever have an argument. I know that sounds so starry-eyed idealistic, but I actually think it is possible. As long as you keep taking breaks, it's actually very hard to have an argument.
Yeah, I don't think I've had an argument in like years, honestly. Because when I'll have a heated discussion, like where both people are criticizing things that they're doing, but we won't be like arguing and getting to the point where we're just yelling like profanities at each other and stuff.
Another quick tip I want to say is sometimes letting the other person win the argument actually can work in your favor because they will feel for you. So what I mean by that is, like, sometimes, like, maybe my mom and I, like when I was younger, like, we get in an argument about like whether I was supposed to load the dishwasher or not. Okay, I mean, something really simple. And eventually, sometimes I would just be like, "All right, Mom, I think you're right. I'm gonna load the dishwasher." That was the most important words I just said were, "I think you're right."
Yeah.
and I would just load the dishwasher, which takes like 5 minutes, okay?
And I think that this is a great strategy because you can compare the alternative where you just keep having a heated debate and nothing gets done.
Yeah.
Both of you just get more and more angry at each other until maybe a break occurs and you go to sleep or something.
Yeah.
But this time, you admit to being wrong, and suddenly all of that heated discussion goes down the drain because your mom is like, maybe I've been too hard on you, sort of thing.
Right. And so I just want to conclude with just some basic fundamental, like, you don't need any drastic or like mental powers to follow. Very simple tips that you can do whenever you have an argument. The first one is if the percentage of discussion per person. If you are speaking more than 50% in the discussion, it's not a discussion, it's an argument. Second one is taking a break. If you feel like that you don't need to take a break, take a break. And the third point is just if you finally feel that it's not worth fighting over, just say, you were right, and I'm going to do this. Never ever say the word wrong. It's just a bad word to say. Don't ever say you're wrong, or I think you're wrong, or you may be wrong, or I don't think that was correct of you to do that, or you were incorrect.
Well, see, I think that you can have conversations like that, like where you say, like, I think that was incorrect, but like you can have it at this tonality without the hate and spew that's coming out.
Yeah, but you do. I would say what's even more powerful is for the other person to say it. They should. You want to gear the conversation so that they themselves, on their own volunteer basis, say, Mom, I'm really sorry, but I probably should have loaded the dishwasher. I was wrong.
Like, I guess what you maybe approach them, you say like maybe like look at this from a different perspective, and then you say like your perspective, and then maybe by seeing it from your perspective, they will just admit that they're wrong.
Yeah. But I mean, again, I think the most powerful tool for avoiding arguments is either the break tool and the seek first to understand, the listening.
Definitely.
So, all right, guys. So thanks for staying in touch with us, and
watch our great acting skills.
Yeah, great acting skills. So, thanks again for listening, and stay tuned for other podcasts. Thanks.